A little bit unusual. First, I'd like to mention, got some shocking news this morning that Judy Ponzi had passed away over the weekend. Judy Ponzi is a really good friend of the town. She's been our agent for Travelers Insurance as long as I can remember, probably 15 years or more. Although she was our agent, she ran her work with that group as a friend of the town. That she got her very best for the town. If there was a claim, she did her very best to get as much on the claim as possible. Even when it came to workers' compensation, which she had nothing to do with. She was our best helper in that area. She kept us informed, she worked with the auditors, she worked with our people, and helped us to get the very best deal that we possibly could on workers' compensation. Judy was also a avid friend to young people. That back in the day, not too many years ago, she was helping with the town picnic. She was a volunteer for the kids groups. Judy is going to be very badly missed by all of us. And I'd like a moment of silence, please. Thank you. This evening we have the pleasure of a couple of guys that want to talk to us. This is John Cooper and Bill Wagner. They represent NIMAC, the Niagara Military Affairs Council. And gentlemen, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate the opportunity to come here this evening, and certainly we appreciate the support that we have gotten from the town of Wheatfield for many, many years in the work that we do. For the last 20 years, NIMAC has worked as an advocate for the base in Washington in all levels of our government and all levels of the United States Air Force. We also work as a liaison with the local communities, such as the town of Wheatfield, which part of the base resides in. And we appreciate the support and from time to time information that we get from your planning board concerning things that might be an encroachment on the airport. So thank you very much. And Bill Wagner, also a town of Wheatfield resident, is recently elected as our vice chairman. So I'll let him say a few words.
Yeah, as John mentioned, with part of the base residing in the town of Wheatfield, the base has a significant economic impact to the area to the tune of about $180 million annually. So it's very important, and there's about an $88 million payroll. Of the 3,000 folks who do reside here in the Western New York area, there are a number of them that are Wheatfield residents and members of the Air National Guard and also the Air Force Reserve. So the impact of the base to the area is significant. And like John said, we appreciate the support that the town has given us in the past. Some of the things that we continue to work on, as John said, we go to the Pentagon, Capitol Hill. We were just at Scott Air Force Base with Air Mobility Command, making sure that where in the past, over the past 20 years, in 1995 and 2005, there were BRACs, base realignment and closures. Those are threats, significant threats to the base closing. And I think that we were on the defensive during those 20 years, and now as we've gotten matured as an organization, we're now on the offensive, and we're starting to tackle some things and going to meet with the Air Force in a proactive manner and meeting with four-star generals and others who are in the process of making decisions about the budget and the different types of aircraft that might be aligned over at the Niagara Air Base. And we're getting ahead of the curve on this, on these types of things. So we're in that proactive stance, and the importance of NIMAC to the base cannot be understated. So again, like I said, we appreciate your support. One thing I do want to say is that the last air show that we had in July was a great success. We had six-figure attendance, and we had put together some information for local businesses around the base to make sure they took advantage of it by offering specials and parking and whatnot. So we had a lot of people engaged around the base in order to take advantage of the excess traffic that we generated from that show. And I'd like to let you know that also we've put in the proper paperwork with the military to make sure that we have another air show coming up, hopefully in the next 2 years. We've asked to have the Blue Angels. We've had the Thunderbirds the last couple of times, and we'd like to see the Blue Angels attend. That's not a definite, and we don't have a date on it yet, but like I said, hopefully in a couple of years we'll have another air show, which again can greatly benefit the town of Wheatfield.
Okay, thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. Thank you for all that you do for this air base. We know how important it is.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, we'll move on to public input. Jerry, do we have anybody that signed up?
Yes. Keith Lang.
You're certainly loud enough. We can probably hear you from there.
Okay, my concern on this, the Weaver development that's planned behind my house on Evergreen there. Originally, I spoke to Mr. Weaver over a year ago, and he showed me the plans, the original plans that he had for the area. And at that time, both retention ponds that he had were down by his business down on the east end there of that development. Now, I understand the retention pond is going to be one almost right behind my house, a wet one, and a dry one up by Nash Road. Where's this water going to go to? I mean, it can't go towards Nash. Those ditches cannot handle any more water. And originally, all that water was supposed to drain over and then cross under the boulevard into the creek. And the town engineers need to look at this, and something has to be done. I mean, 3-4 weeks ago, when we had that 5 inches of rain on a weekend or that Friday night, I had almost a foot of water in my backyard there. I mean, I could have gone kayaking down towards Nash. And you put 23 homes back there, the water's got to go someplace. And right now, it's going to come towards us. All those homes in the back there. So, I mean, the town and the planning board and the engineers really need to take a closer look at this and come up with an alternative solution for that, because I got enough mosquitoes in my backyard now, and I don't need a pond sitting there 200 yards from my house in the middle of summer full of water. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Jerry?
Kelly Duger and Debbie Fidel.
2 for the price of 1.
Hello, we're back again. Okay, we're just going to reiterate. At the August 10th meeting, Paul Siegman stated that work would begin soon on filling in the ditch where Ryan Fisher lost his life. It's now over a month. So Paul,
Paul's not here this evening.
All right, what's the deal?
Yeah, Paul's not here this evening. He expects to be here late if he can make it.
Okay. I know he said there was many roads that needed to be fixed, which we understood, but now we're getting into the leaf season, so I know they're going to be picking up leaves and whatever. So we were hoping before the time changed, before it gets dark or earlier, that the ditch would be filled in.
Okay. Thank you. We'll let him know.
And then the other thing, at the August 24th meeting, Tim Zuber from Wendell Engineers stated that his company would be on our streets the following week to start to looking at our road. I didn't see any person on our road, and I don't know what that involves. If you have
coming up to the mic so you can hear me. They actually didn't get out that week. They were out the following week, but they did get up and walk up and down the road, and they took their measurements, so they have the data they need to start working on their map plan and report, which is what is needed to give to our grants writer to try to get funding for that.
So when do you think he would receive that information?
Well, he doesn't need it until the beginning of the year. We're not going to wait that long.
He only has an 8-week period to work on that grant.
If we don't get the information early enough, you can't get a grant in this cycle.
I thought he can't put it in until after the first of the year.
It starts January 1st, and I thought he said 8 weeks he has that time. But he wants your information.
Oh, I'm sorry. We have to get the number first, and then there's other steps we have to take, and then submit everything.
Yeah,
so before we can move forward.
It's more than a number. We actually have to have the plan in place.
Yeah, we have to have the plan
right, it's a map
and the
plan
number,
report.
and then there's other steps after that, so he could submit everything together.
Right.
So that's kind of where we stand.
And we know you're busy, you have the River Road thing going, and I'm sure you have other stuff going on your plate, but, so when do you think you would be able to get him that information?
Well, I guess I need to talk with,
Talk to Bernie.
Bernie and find out when he needs it by. Because they've taken their measurements, they just have to get the time in to write up the report and get the alternatives down,
Okay.
so.
Did you do both sides or the one side?
I believe they check both sides. Their main point of checking is to make sure that there is enough room on the south side to actually fit a sidewalk without interfering with the telephone poles, utility poles.
Mm-hmm.
So they did determine that there is enough room on that south side of the road to fit the sidewalk. They may have to adjust a hydrant here or there, but
Okay.
that was the main concern, is that there wouldn't be enough room to fit them there and have enough room in between the end of the sidewalk and the road. So that's what they're going to proceed with, the south side.
Okay. All right, so you have the information to pass on to him? You have the information
Well,
right now?
they've got their measurements so that they can put a sketch together, which is the map part of the map plan
Right.
report.
Okay.
And then they write up the report part and include an estimate and
Right,
opinion of
so there's
probable
more work
construction
to be
cost.
done before he can
Correct.
get what he needs. Okay.
But they got out to get the field work done. That was their first step.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Bill.
Flamia?
Evening. I just wanted to add a little bit to the Nash Road development. The one thing I remember at the planning board was brought up about the fact of is they done any drilling to test the soil possible of the leaching from the former Love Canal dump site. Beyond that, I know Kristen said that they even thought of doing it. And that's a worrisome thought just because of the fact of the water table and whatnot, and we all agreed with it at that time. The other thing is I did a little research too, and the National Health Institute, the U.S. government, did a study on the proximity of living close to landfill sites. And there's scary information. I would love to share it with you guys. I've highlighted all the information on the cancers, birth defects, and most of the studies were done at Love Canal, which where most of the stuff came from. So I really would hope that you guys would take a look at this before you let them proceed, and hopefully we can find out if there is a danger for people moving there, because those are future residents and our kids that are going to be there, and it's scary that potentially living next to another possible dump site. I mean, I know that it's supposedly cleaned up, but at that meeting you also meant the fact that we're not going to allow people to go picnicking back there. So I just want to really share this with you all and hope that you'll make that research before you let them move forward on the safety of being that close proximity to a former dump
Okay, you
site.
understand there's a difference between the planning board and the town
I
board.
do, and I know that you guys
Yeah.
technically have the
This-
ultimate say, no matter what.
As of this moment, it could change this evening, but as of this moment, that project is still in the hands of the planning board. They have not made any recommendation to the town board yet. In fact, there's a
Right.
major issue about the turnaround versus cul-de-sac. that has
Right,
to
and
be
I remember
issued.
that was discussed at the meeting. And I just
so
hoped, I wanted to give you guys
If you
the
want to give that
research
to us,
also.
I can give copies to our board, and I can also give it to the planning board as well.
Yes, definitely. I'd love to, that way it's shared with the town and the planning board.
Please. Thank you. Morning.
Hi, thank you. My name is Bill Savory. I live at 7329 Nash Road. I have Parkinson's, so I'm doing the best I can. 7329 Nash Road. I border on to the access to the Bob Weaver property. I've lived there for 30 years, and right after I moved in, I tried to buy 3-4 acres from Capozzi, who owned the property behind me, and they laughed at me. And then I tried to buy it from the neighbor across the right-of-way as it is. And I was told, I'm not going to sell it now, but when I sell it, you'll be the first to know. I wasn't the first to know. I was the second to know. The way I see it, with the subdivision, from my eyes, there's 3 problems. One is water, and we've discussed water a lot, and I'm convinced that I'm going to be flooded when it's over. I'm the only house on the south side, so I'm worried that all the back sides of the lots will somehow drain into the woods and somehow make my water level real high. It's high already. We have a pond behind my house for 6 months out of the year. Everyone calls it Savory's Pond, but it's just poor drainage. Number 2, second problem for me is the trees. I border on to one of his lots directly behind me, and there's trees right on the line. And it's my impression the planning board said that Bob Weaver would somehow take care of that so that there would be no cost to me if I just didn't argue about what trees were to be taken down or left. So I'm hoping about that. And finally, the big problem is traffic. This access road next to my lot is going to ruin my lot. It's going to ruin the lot across from the access, but the whole neighborhood is going to be split in half. We have Evergreen, which has a high volume of traffic cutting in from the boulevard, and right across from Evergreen, we have a factory. And now 2 houses down from Evergreen, we're going to have a parallel street to Evergreen. It's going to be impossible to tell where the traffic is. Sometimes right now I have to wait 5 minutes to back out of my driveway because of the traffic. I might have to wait a half an hour once they put that access in. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. and Mrs. Richard Gall.
That note that I didn't have anything to say other than what I had said before. Basically, we have no backyard now. We have water back there. When they put this in, we're not going to have any privacy whatsoever.
Okay, thank you.
Kyle Pollack. Sharon Downey.
Good evening. I wrote this at 2:30 this morning, so I timed myself, and it's just under 2 minutes, or 3 minutes. So my topic this evening is the process and review and approval of new housing developments in our town. We have heard from Wendell, senior advisor, that all the good land is gone and that only one thing between a bad idea and becoming reality is you. Having been through what we have with cobblestone and from attending several town planning meetings, I am concerned that there is a machine at work in this town to push bad ideas, ideas that became a reality, would harm current residents. Those who take the time to participate in these meetings see high-paid consultants present ideas that no one of any reasonable integrity would even consider presenting and do with a straight face. When challenging an issue like elevations, they conveniently don't have the fact at hand. When reminded of the other issues that would affect the future of the safety of the town, like widening Niagara Falls Boulevard, those inconvenient facts are simply dismissed. One example would be Aubrey Way. At the most recent planning board meeting on the 2nd of September, a question was asked as to what were the elevations of the proposed new developments were relative to the current neighbors. Gil, I think you brought that up. The question could not be answered because conveniently there were no drawings to show this. This same convenient lack of information from the same people who are supposed to be experts occurred on cobblestone and turned out to be a major issue. Another concern was the close proximity to Love Canal remediation, which is not complete. Would you like to buy a new home that close to a chemical dump? Is this being taken into account? Do you really want to repeat the past? Why is it fair to ask the current neighbors to pay and have installed drainage pipes, which they were talking about, along the back of their yards to help with the drainage? It seems they already know there is a drainage problem. Shouldn't the developer pay? I know the fire board also has concerns about all the developments that only have one entrance. At a planning board meeting, Highway Superintendent Paul Sigmund had asked the planning board, please do not approve any more cul-de-sac developments for many reasons. As our duly elected representatives, we are asking you to defend your constituents by making sure that any new development is done responsibly in a way that does not impact the current residents. and in the way that does not cost existing residents money. Please think about the current neighbors. They are the people you represent. I will be at every meeting, do anything that I can help. We need to stop the bad idea machine from destroying our neighborhoods, all for the sake of the next $1 million. Let them find some good land somewhere else.
Thank you, Sharon. Anybody else?
James Kowalski.
I'd just like to say that probably a lot of the reasons people moved into Wheatfield is because they like a rural area. But if you've noticed lately, there's developments everywhere, whether it's Shawnee, Moyer, Nash Road, Kruger. Is it the objective to build on every available piece of land in the town? Don't you think that maybe there's enough building that we've overbuilt in the town? Green spaces are nice and they're important for people. Also, have they considered all these developments, how it's going to affect the schools and other services from the town? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hubert Swanson.
Good evening. My name is Hubert Swanson, and I am here to discuss my concerns on the proposed subdivision Aubrey Way. On September 2nd, my wife and I, along with our neighbors, attended the planning board meeting to voice our displeasure over the development. One of the many issues we have is traffic. The only outlet for 23 homes will be on Nash Road. This is a heavily traveled road with 2 streets, a business entrance, exit, and many driveways. Evergreen is used as a cut-through from Niagara Falls Boulevard, and the vehicles speed onto Nash Road to beat the traffic. This is also a busy route leading into and out of the city of North Tonawanda. Another issue is the retention pond and dry pond. These bring up concerns of safety of children, family, pets, and wildlife in the area. There will be breeding grounds for mosquitoes in the standing water that will not turn over, as we are led to believe. Mosquitoes carry health risk to the community, and we believe these ponds will contribute to a large population of them. There is also the maintenance of the pond and land around them. We are told the future lot owner will be responsible for the upkeep, but who is to say that the lots will ever be sold? The current owner doesn't properly care for his property now, so why should we believe this will be any different? In the August 16th Buffalo News, there is a picture of a home whose yard was underwater due to the failure of a retention pond to contain the rainwater, and it flooded its banks. There are already drainage issues in the neighbors' yards on Evergreen, and they will now have to worry about a pond overfilling. The area to develop is near the Nash Road remediation site of the Love Canal cleanup. That brings up concerns that these chemicals could be a threat to the proposed development and future owners of these homes, as well as the existing residents. Digging deep ponds and basements could possibly pose a threat of contamination if the land has not been completely examined. The loss of more green space and one of the last few farm fields on the south side of the Niagara Falls Boulevard is another concern. We very frequently have deer, turkey, and many other forms of wildlife that roam these fields and wooded areas. What would happen to all these animals when their homes and habitats are destroyed and they are forced to find a new place to live? They will be pushed out into the neighboring areas, and we will fear there will be an influx of wildlife-involved accidents. There are also many bushes and trees included, beautiful maples and evergreens that will be in the way of this entry road and the development will be and will be ultimately have to be cut down in the name of progress. These trees are approximately 100 years old and should not be sacrificed for this purpose. We are losing the rural look of our town. These are only a few concerns about this development. We respectfully ask that a full traffic study be performed before this development is approved to continue. We also ask for soil and water testing of the proposed site and the relationship to the Nash Road remediation site. We are also asked for a base map study of the wildlife in the affected area, and we ask for a public hearing. At this time, I thank you for At this time, I thank you this evening, and my final comment tonight is Aubrey Way is the wrong way to go. Thank you.
Giuliano.
Hi, good evening. I'm changing the subject here. Not that I don't think the other one is important, but the one near and dear to my heart is Quasar. I have a couple questions. I'll just ask them all, and then you can answer them, please. I wanted to know if there's been any decision from Judge Caruso, if we've received a response from Ag and Markets from the letter that I think it was dated July 18th from Steve Ricca, if Quasar's approached you about modifying the plant, and if you've submitted a request to the DEC regarding the logs from what was put in the plant. Then I have a statement. I think that you probably are already aware that the town of Lockport passed a moratorium on the spreading of biosolids to give them time to determine what type of laws, if any, will be put in place. And Monica and I and several people went there and spoke, and they adopted the moratorium. We also happened to run into Nate Carr, and I asked him about some spreading that was going on in Royalton, and he confirmed it, and he also said that the spreading there was Class A, so they didn't need to mark it, and they didn't need permits or anything like that. Right. It's also in the 18-mile creek watershed. But saying that it's Class A, based on the documents that we foiled and we've received from you, the plant was set up to manufacture or produce Class B. It's not supposed to be modified. And our law for this batch of Class A was put in well in advance. So I want to know the answers to these questions, and then if there's any intent to pursue action since they produced a product other than what they were designed to do. And we don't think that that plant has the capacity to do that either, based on engineering and the drawings that we had.
We have not heard anything from Ag and Markets. We've not heard anything from basically anybody.
Okay.
Matt, you haven't heard anything, right?
No, nothing's come back from Judge Caruso. They have not issued a decision yet.
So that's still in limbo. As far as the Class A versus Class B, I don't know if that would constitute a change. I think we'd have to look at our law. They didn't change their process. I think it's only time, right? Well, isn't that what they claim, is it's in the tank longer, it becomes Class A? They test it, it becomes Class A? I don't think if they added heat, that would be a change in process.
Well, we have, last year when Dr. McBride came into town and spoke before everybody, we recorded that, and Nate at that point said that they had, turned it up to get it to be, 120 degrees, which it's above the capacity of that plant. That's what he said. I actually just watched it the other night. And this time, he didn't go that far when I was speaking with him, but he just said, oh, we have all the documents to prove it. And we've already foiled the DEC, and they've already, they're beyond their time. They've already sent us 2 emails saying, oh, it's going to be longer, it's going to be longer. So we need somebody with a little bit, a heavy hitter to come in and come behind and ask for the DEC. We've always gotten our foils from you, so we think that if Steve Ricca or Sean or somebody else also foiled for this, it would be beneficial. And also even they're self-regulating, which we discussed at length a couple meetings ago, and they're supposed to share with the DEC exactly who's dumped in that tank or, who they've received material from. And none of that is available at the DEC. We foiled for it. I've requested that you as the board foil for it. And I don't know if you've done that yet, but it's really important to know this. I mean, we've seen different trucks there dumping things, and we don't know what's going on. And now we've got this field in Royalton right in the 18-mile watershed, creek watershed. It can all end up in Lake Ontario. I really think that we have a case, and it just goes to show how this company does business and the tactics that they've used in this town and on our citizens. So please push it, and if you'd like to meet separately, we could do that too, to share what we know with you or Steve Ricca or anybody.
Well, you've shared what you've known in the past, and that's how we got to the point where we are. If you have information that's new,
well, just
share it, and it'll help us to continue
I'll write you an email, so that way then you can pass it on to Steve Ricka. I do believe, I was looking through all those papers after he said that, based on what they came into this town with and what their intention was, to then have a product Class A, they weren't supposed to modify their operation, period.
Right.
So,
I believe that's correct, yeah.
so I think that we have a case there.
Okay, thank you. Let's take a look at that. Okay, is there anybody else that wants to speak to the board at this time? Yes, ma'am.
I just have one question. Did I understand correctly before, is the sidewalk a done deal on Kruger Road?
Not even close. Not even close.
Okay.
Now, where we are at this point is to see if it's possible to get a grant, because if we can get a grant to put in that sidewalk, it would make it a lot less expensive either for the town or for the residents in that area. So before we would go out to the residents in that area, or before we would make a decision here, pay for it.
Well, my point is,
So,
there are, with all the roads in the town, and there are a lot of them are a lot narrower. The road I live on is actually narrower than Kruger Road, as a matter of fact. And we have no place to, ride a bike, and we have a lot of pedestrians. We have people pushing baby carriages. So I don't think that we could do one without looking at a lot of the roads in the town.
obviously that's something we have to take into account, right? Thank you. Anybody else on any subject? If not, then we'll move along. Councilman Helwig is not here this evening. I believe he's in Florida. We do have a set of minutes from the August 24th meeting. Does anybody wish to move those in for approval?
Second.
Moved by Randy, second by Gil. Anything anybody wishes to change or modify? If not, then all in favor of approving as written, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So that's 3-0 and 1. Bill payment. We have a bill payment of a total of $312,523.68. The voucher numbers on that are 2015-1646 through 1814. Does anybody wish to move those in for payment?
So moved.
Moved by Gil. Do we have a second? Second by Art. Any bills that anybody wishes to challenge or hold? If not, then all in favor of paying these bills signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That's approved. Paul Sigmund was hoping to get here before the meeting started. That's apparently hasn't happened, so we'll move on to Rich Donner.
We have a bid opening this evening, and the only other thing is the buster, the breaker that's in the motions for tonight for use on the mini excavator.
Okay.
Due to last year's frost and other projects and more pavement, concrete going on in town where the water lines are underneath, we feel that it's a necessary investment for to help us do our job.
What does the buster, the hydraulic breaker, do? What?
It's basically a jackhammer that goes on the end of the excavator.
So it's to be able to get through.
It would also fit on highways machines, so both departments would be able to use it.
The object is to get through the ice layer so that you can get at what's underneath it?
Get to repair the water lines, and I have some pictures from last year that shows how much frost was in the ground, and using a hand jackhammer extended the job by at least 4 hours.
Wow.
And that was putting people out of water while we were trying to make the repairs, so anytime we can get them back in service sooner is better.
Okay. We do have a bid opening. Do we want to do that now, folks, or do we want to hang on? Okay, go ahead. Rich, can you explain what the bid is for?
The bid is for a new van for the water sewer department. We currently use 2 vans right now that are 1998s and have over 100,000 miles on each of them. One is upwards of about 160,000 miles. So that's what we use mainly for
the grinder pump repair vehicles. We're able to keep all the stuff inside, keep it warm, so in winter when we're out fixing it, we're able to get right in and do the repairs.
This will take a moment, folks. While Kathy's opening that up, let me explain a little bit about the difference between what the planning board does in a subdivision versus what we do. The initial plat comes into the planning board and they start talking about it at their level. The planning board's job is to review all of the rules that we have in the town, any state laws, any federal laws, any county laws for that subdivision, that specific project that's before them. And they try to make sure that it handles all of those laws effectively. If it is a single small business, such as Bridgestone is going to be coming in there this week. Bridgestone at this point is a pretty good sized business, 60 employees. It's located at Indicon. This will be the first time they come into the planning board with an actual design. 2 or 3 or 4 meetings down the road, they'll come to the conclusion, and the planning board can take that right to its conclusion and say that is a business, a plot that meets our code. In the case of a subdivision, that requires town board action. We require that comes to the town board. So the planning board will do all of the same things. They will go through the whole process. They get information from our fire advisory board. They get information from our town attorneys. They get information from the other side. And they can decide whether they want more information before bringing it to us or not. The seeker process on an individual building is done by the planning board. The seeker process on a subdivision is done by the town board. Like Aubrey Way, before they can approve that project, it has to go through the State Environmental Quality Review, the seeker process. And in that's basically the engineering and the review of the engineering on that project, where they would look at all of the things that you talked about tonight. We can require all of what you said and much more, as we did in Cobblestone. I think that was 4 pages long of requirements that we're asking for more information before we'll consider approving that subdivision. Aubrey Way may have something similar. One of the gentlemen asked about a public hearing. It's a necessity for us to have at least one public hearing on a subdivision. I think that's a necessity, if I remember right, Tim, to do a public hearing before we can accept seeker. We have to approve seeker first and then hold the public hearing. Okay. So all of those things have to happen before a project is completed. At this point, Aubrey Way is still before the planning board. It has not come to us for any kind of approval, except you will hear later this evening, they have asked us to start the seeker process. Not finish it, start it. It's basically opening up the engineering on the project. We mentioned cul-de-sac and that Paul doesn't want any more cul-de-sacs. I just got tonight the design of a potential turnaround in lieu of a cul-de-sac. We have to have this checked. We have to have it checked by Mike, make sure it meets our codes, state codes. We want to bring it to the fire advisory board to get their input, which we already have partial input on that. We also want to go to the school to see if the school buses will accept this way as an appropriate way, because it requires them to do some backing up. A cul-de-sac doesn't require them to back up if it's big enough. But this would require a fire company, an 80-foot long truck or a 78-foot long school bus to do some backing up in order to turn around. So we want to get their input as well. So there's an awful lot that goes on before a project comes anywhere near us to approve. Aubrey Way still has a long way to go before approval, or disapproval for that matter. So there is a difference between planning board and town board approving things. Individual plots, individual projects can be approved by the planning board. They might ask for our help, they might not. They might ask for a public hearing. If they do seeker, they're required to do public hearing. Correct? Only for subdivisions. Special use permits. Okay. So and they do some public hearings as well. We had two, I think, public information meetings having to do with Quasar before that was approved, and unfortunately nobody had any information at that time, nobody spoke up, and it was summarily approved. Kathy, are we ready?
Yep.
Let's finish up the bid.
Okay, the bid again was for 2015 or newer 2500 Chevrolet Express or GMAC Savannah cargo van. The first bid was from Joe Basil, with express package of $27,320. Without the express package, $26,493. Heinrich Chevrolet bid without the express package at $29,991.06, and Jim Murphy Pontiac without the express package at $28,975.50. And Rich will review all the bids to make sure the specifications are matched and then get back to the town board.
Okay, so we'll bring this back to the board for possible approval at the next meeting, right? And this was a public bid, so anybody had the opportunity of bidding on it? Rich? Yes. It's not just these three companies, anybody could? Yep. Okay, thank you. Anything else for Rich? If not, we'll move on to Mike Rinaldi for recreation.
Good evening. I would like to first send, on behalf of the Recreation Department, a heartfelt condolences to the Ponzi family. Judy was pretty good for us. I spoke to her and got to know her a lot more than I ever dreamed I would as the Recreation Director, with a plethora of insurance claims. Arlene told me before the meeting, still kind of stunned, I'm numb. She was, she called me a lot. You know, I talked to her a lot more than I talked to my own mother, which, you know, I should probably go and call her after the meeting. So,
what does your
it's
mother
sad.
know about insurance?
Not as much as Judy, I'll tell you that. She's going to be missed. That's all I'm going to say about that. Moving on to the department, we're still accepting applications and registrations for our pre-K program that starts Saturday, 9 to 12. It's a 10-week session. We'll run another session in the spring. Halloween party's actually going to be coming up before you know it. That's Saturday, October 24th, 6 p.m. Put that on your calendars. And I'm way out of sorts here. Our first Nerf night is this Friday of the season. So.
Our first Nerf night?
Nerf night. Youth Center, 6 p.m. to 7:30. Anything?
Do we want to consider already the evening for trick-or-treating and the hours for trick-or-treating? Do you want to make a recommendation?
We can do that. I think last year we went 4 to 7. It's a Saturday night. I mean, it's a Saturday.
It's on a Saturday.
Okay. All right.
Are we ready, or do you want to do more homework before we do that?
I'm ready.
Definitely Saturday.
Saturday? I think 4 to 7 is appropriate then. Any objections?
Okay, does anybody want to make a motion to have the hours, the official hours of Halloween, October 31st from 4 till 7? How about I'll make that motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Anything further on the question? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed? Okay, Kathy, that's approved. Mike, you can put that up on your website then.
Thanks.
Anything else? Thank you. Other Mike? What's going on in building? Anybody?
I have a question, Mike. We've talked about the steps on the north side of the town hall and the concrete. Would you feel, we talked briefly with Tim, would you feel comfortable getting some quotes from some concrete people to replace in kind, rather than go out to engineering to get this possibly going?
All the way out to the driveway, so we get rid of that bump? Anything else, Randy?
That's all.
Anybody else for Mike?
Also, Mike, Rich, are you getting, quotes on pointing, your building, the brick?
I do need to get some quotes, I haven't got them yet.
Because this building needs pointing too. There's several spots on it, the mortar's in that far. Maybe we could get them together or something between the two buildings.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bridget? Any questions for our assessor? Thank you. We'll move on to Arlene, seniors. Anything else? When's our next dance? That's got to be coming up in October. So coming soon. Good. Thank you. Tim, Wendell?
Thank you. Our agenda item this evening has to do with the community center canopies. As you know, over the past couple of weeks, we've had a quote package out for putting 2 canopies at the community center, one on the senior center back entrance side and one on the mechanical room, the maintenance entrance back side. Those quotes were due last Wednesday by 3 o'clock, and out of the 4 people that we requested quotes from, we only received a response from 1. And those numbers, we actually split it up to include one is canopy A, the other is canopy B, and asked for a total if both of them were selected. So the quotes that we did receive, or the quote that we did receive, was from Swoker Construction, and it was for canopy A, which is on the senior side, for $32,500. And the canopy B, which is on the maintenance side, for $11,850, coming to a total of $44,350. Our hope when this went out to quote is that they would both be coming in, the total would be coming in below the state procurement rate. As it is, both of these together we can't award because that would require a formal bid. So what is up for the town board tonight is the option of awarding one or the other of those canopies, or holding off and requesting quotes again in the springtime perhaps when we can get more response from contractors. The fall can be a touchy season with people's workloads and people trying to finish up their work before the winter hits. So we think that's one of the factors that contributed to not getting as many quotes as we liked. But the next step is for the board to decide how they wish to proceed. We could try to bid that again this fall. Just the chances of getting somebody who's suddenly freed up seem to be on the slim side.
Okay, gentlemen, what's your pleasure?
My opinion is that just because you have a quotation in hand, I think that's a rather high number in my mind, and we have nothing to compare it to. I would like to reject that quote and send it out one more time for bid. I want to see at least 3 to make a comparison to. I can't take the town's money and just go ahead and blow it on one because we got that quote in here. So I would recommend that we, turn down that quote and thank them very much and ask them if they'd like to rebid. And I would also include some other folks, in that bidding list. And if they can't do it this year, at least let's get quoted out so we could break ground in the spring.
If that's a
That's
motion,
my
I'll
opinion.
If that's a motion, I'll second that
That's
motion.
my motion,
To reject that
yes.
quote.
Okay, moved and seconded to reject the one bid and go back out for further bids. Anything further on the question? If not, then all in favor of rejecting the one bid, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that bid is rejected, Tim.
Okay. That was our main agenda.
Who's gonna go back out for quotes? So that'll be you again?
Yes, we'll revise that, we'll revise the package, change the dates in it. We'll talk with you further about how we handle, substantial completion dates. I guess we can, if those are up in the air and it doesn't necessarily have to be done this fall, we could, you know, if it has a date that's further on in the spring, that could also entice more bidders to bid on it now.
Okay,
So
very
we'll
good.
coordinate with you on that.
Anything else?
The only other item is that letter. I'm not sure, do you want me to go through that?
Please.
Or is Matt? Okay. What we brought in this evening is, in response to a letter that the supervisor had received. It's about a letter of map revision that was done, concerning, floodplain work that was done along Cayuga Creek within the immediate limits of the Air Force Base. I believe they were doing work there to formally change the map so that it had less of an effect and detriment on their runways. This map revision, unbeknownst to us, apparently has to be adopted into our town code and accepted into the town law. And from that letter, it says that needs to be done by mid-October. So what we did is put together a quick motion for you to consider tonight. In order to adopt the town law, we need to hold a public hearing, and then seeker would need to be done, and then the town board would need to accept that town law. Seeker in this case, because it's an ordinance, it's a law, it's only a one-item question, it's not a coordinated review, it's not a lengthy process. It's something that the town board can basically do the same night. But what we'd like to do is to give enough time to have formal, ample notification time for that public hearing, is we'd like the board to consider setting a public hearing for the October 5th meeting. And we have a suggested motion. I'm not sure if you want me to read the whole thing or not.
It's basically a bunch of whereases, but it's just to hold a public hearing on the proposed amendments at the Wheatfield Town Hall and then we have to pick a date and a time.
Well, we're hoping for October 5th, so it's just
Okay,
the time
so
you need to pick.
I'll go ahead and pick 7:15. I'll do the motion, 7:15 on October 5th, 2015. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Art. Do we need to notify the airbase and let them know this is going on?
I think they have likely already been notified, and I'm guessing it was probably driven by them. I can contact the people who did the floodplain work themselves and find out some more on that.
Yeah, there's Pat Batista would be one possibility, or Lieutenant Colonel Petrozella. She might know who to contact over there. I think Pat Batista is very likely the person involved in that.
Sure, we can give them a call.
Okay, so we'll have a public hearing on October 5th. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed? Okay, we have our hearing.
That's all we have this evening, unless there's any other questions.
Anything for Tim? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Matt, regular motions.
Okay, the first motion we have is from the planning board and from my office town attorney, whereas the town of Wheatfield has received a subdivision application from Robert Weaver to subdivide property located at 3400 Niagara Falls Boulevard into 23 single-family home lots as depicted on drawings prepared by Advanced Design Group, and whereas the Wheatfield Planning Board has reviewed the project and although they are not ready to make a recommendation on the subdivision, they have requested that the town board begin the secret process to receive input from other agencies. And whereas the Wheatfield Town Board agrees that the project is not ready to proceed with preliminary subdivision, but agrees that in accordance with New York secret regulations contained in 6 NYCRR Part 617, would like to conduct a coordinated secret process for this project and establish the town board as secret lead agency. Now therefore be it resolved that the Wheatfield Town Board hereby authorizes Wendell to start the secret coordinated review process, stating the town board's desire to be lead agency. Be it further resolved, the town board refers the application back to the planning board for their continued review and potential resolution of issues and concerns with the project.
Okay, gentlemen, do we have anybody want to make this motion?
I'll make the motion to start the process because we don't know that much about it, and I think we need seeker to show us the way, what others have found, for this project.
Do we have a second? Gentlemen, do we have a second?
I have a question. We
Go ahead.
briefly discussed this, that the plans may change.
Right.
The design may change. My concern is if this goes out to other agencies to review, they review it, then it changes a little bit, and then it should go back to them to be reviewed again. They may say, oh, we already looked at this. We don't need to waste more time on it. My concern is I'd rather have the plans finalized, what they really are proposing to us, with the turnaround, with the ponds or whatever, and the plans. And once it's finalized, then I would possibly second it. But until the plans are finalized, I have a problem with it.
Okay. State Environmental Quality Review. It's an actual process you go through. There's a short form and a longer form. And it's a whole series of questions that have to be answered about the project, and any of them that are marked yes, any of them that might have impacts can require further work before the final seeker is approved. That's where we are with Cobblestone. We're in that seeker development stage. Okay, do we have a second on this, gentlemen? Okay, one last time, do we have a second? Okay, we will hold this for failure to have a motion and second. We'll move on.
Okay, the next motion before the board is from the Water and Sewer Department and also by the Town Attorney's Office. To approve Water and Sewer Department to publish a hydraulic breaker mounting plate and hoses for department's mini excavator. Said equipment would be purchased under the state contract from Bobcat of Buffalo for a purchase price of $6,463.80. Said purchase would be paid from water and sewer funds.
Do we have a motion, gentlemen?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Moved by Randy, second by Gil. Anything on the question? Would this do our roof over at the community center? Would we be able to break up the ice? Bigger? Okay. Anything further on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's approved. Chris Kringle.
Okay. Next, motion from Recreation Department and Town Attorney. Authorize the Recreation Department to hire Chris Kringle as a girls' basketball instructor according to job specifications and a flat rate of $225 to be paid at the end of the session.
So moved.
Moved by Gil. I'll go ahead and second. Anything on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's approved.
Next motion from Recreation Department Town Attorney. Authorize the Recreation Department to hire Scott Cooper as a boys' basketball instructor according to the job specifications and a flat rate of $225 to be paid at the end of the session.
Need a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Gil, need a second?
Second.
Second by Randy. Anything on this question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That's approved.
Next motion, from the Firearms Permit Review Board and the Town Attorney, approve firearms discharge permits for individuals as shown on the attached list, and there was
Do you
a
have that
list
list?
attached with the
As long as you
board
have it.
packet.
As long as you have this.
Yeah.
It's about 8 people on the list. I'll go ahead and make that motion. Do we have a second? I need a second to move the permits.
I'll second.
Second by Randy. Anything on the question? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? That's approved.
Next motion from Town Attorney, to reappoint Walter Garrow to the position of Chairman of the Town Planning Board following a break of service from said planning board. Said reappointment will continue upon his previous term of service.
Does anybody want to make the motion?
So move.
I'll second.
Moved by Art, second by Randy. What this is Walt Garrow has retirement rights from working in other positions over his career. In order to be able to start getting paid for his retirement rights from the other places, he has to actually physically retire. So he retired here, and it would only have to have been one day, but he retired a few weeks ago because of the other position, and now we're just reappointing him to the same position. And this will be picking up his term where it left off, correct?
Yes.
Anything further on the question, gentlemen? If not, then all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That's approved.
Okay, next motion from, Water and Sewer Department and Town Attorney, to authorize the Town of Wheatfield Water and Sewer to issue a refund in the amount of $935.68 to Mr. Warden at 3635 Clement Road due to billing errors on said account.
Does anybody want to make the motion?
So move.
Moved by Art. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Randy.
On the question,
Go ahead.
how did this happen? That the guy was overbilled by $900? Richie, do you have a little...
This was over an extended period. Long story short, when we were putting the meters in originally, 2006, the meters were put in on the same day. The serial numbers on the meter were one number off from each other, and they were installed in houses that basically were back to back to each other. So the machines were working properly, the meters were working properly, the readings were going out, and ended up being a clerical error that the wrong number was put on the wrong account.
Okay. Thank you.
And we went back 6 years. That was your recommendation, right?
I think we went 6 years, yes.
Okay, anything further? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That's approved. That should be it.
That's, all I have for motions.
Okay, I would like to have a brief executive session before we leave this evening. There probably won't be any action taken after that executive session. But we'll go on to board member items. Art, do we have anything?
Yeah, I do, unfortunately. I'll try to make these brief. The Veterans Memorial Focus Group has signed the preliminary agreement with our architect, our design architect, and with another organization working under them for setting up the pricing of our memorial, our Veterans Memorial. We are seeking 2 chairpersons to co-chair this. They will be appointed, or actually tried to be coaxed into doing it, appointed to be our personalities for the public out in front. The other thing I have is the comprehensive planning Implementation Task Force. We're looking for help on the agricultural focus group. We certainly would welcome any folks that are interested in that. I hear a lot of people are concerned about the greenways. By all means, please step forward and come to the Comprehensive Planning Board meeting where you could get involved in this. The last item is the Fire Advisory Board meeting. There was some discussion about the DePaul Aero Apartments on Williams Drive, one area of egress in and out. The Fire Advisory Board feels fairly strongly about something has to be done to remedy the situation of only having one area for vehicles to come in and out, because it actually would be servicing two of the facilities. You have the one that's existing there and the new one they're going to be putting up, which will be 61-room apartments. The other thing is the Fire Advisory Board took a look at the Aubrey subdivision plat. They have their preliminary take on it, as the supervisor mentioned. They are looking to take a stance against dead-end streets and cul-de-sacs. They would like to see another mode of egress into and out of subdivisions. That's due to the nature of, number one, the large school buses, as was mentioned, but we have some pretty large fire equipment in the town now in the way of aerial ladders. And that's all I have now. If anyone has any questions, certainly I'm available after the meeting if you'd like to discuss anything.
Randy? I have two things. Besides me, was there any flooding over the weekend? I know Paul's not here. Did you get any calls on any flooding? I didn't see any.
I went out and checked the creeks on Sunday morning, and nothing seemed to be high. The lakes, Willow Lake, Eagle Chase was flowing nicely. There didn't seem to be a problem there. So I don't think anything flooded. Rich, did you hear anything? So that's
good news.
So we had about 2 inches of water with no flooding?
Yeah, there was a whole lot of rain that came down, but it came down nice and slowly, and I suspect that the ground just sort of sucked it all in and is holding on to it. Yeah.
The other thing is the Agricultural Focus Group is meeting next Tuesday, the 22nd at 7 p.m. Part of this group is about preserving farming and farmland. And I want to say this carefully, slowing development. And there's a lot of people here that are talking about development. Well, next Tuesday we'd like to see you and hear you, and not necessarily that that's farmland off of Nash Road, but there are a couple of people here that are on that group, and we'd like to see and hear from some new people and maybe get some thoughts that you have. But that's what this group is about. It's about preserving farming and that land and trying to say it correctly, slow the development of this land. So if you're free next Tuesday, we meet for an hour and 15, hour and a half, and maybe we'll see you at the community center at 7. That's all I have.
Thank you. Gil?
Nothing this evening.
I do have a couple of things. Going back to the planning board, based upon our last meeting at the planning board, it's pretty obvious that we have to do something better for a room. So I've been discussing moving the planning board, possibly the ZBA as well, over to the community center. Mike thinks it can be done. It's a much bigger room. It's probably a better room. We can liven it up a little bit by having a couple of easels in there. So in the future, we probably will be moving over there, more likely sooner than later. This Wednesday there is a planning board meeting, 7:05. It will be in this room up here unless the planning board chair chooses to do otherwise. The things that are scheduled this week are an addition over at Elderwood, Crestwood, the Aero Apartments, which are being penciled into a place on Williams Road next to Summit View, that area between Summit View and the LaSalle Expressway. Finger Foods, which would be a plant over at Indicon. I think that's what we know of as Pizza Logs. And then there's also another one at Indicon called Bridgestone, and Bridgestone is part of the Bridgestone Tire Companies, and they want to make a whole lot of, seats for automobiles. Their business plan shows up to as many as 12,000 seats per day, being made at their plant over there with additions down the road. They hope to, within 5 years, have 90 people working over at their facility at Endicott. So that's what will be on the agenda for this week. Aubrey Way is not on the agenda for this week. I also received a note about the proposed merger for Charter. Time Warner Cable and Charter intend to get together as one company. I do have a sheet that has some information about that. They're having a public comment period in Amherst on September 24th at 2 o'clock. If anybody is interested in putting your say in, your comment in for or against that project, that's going to be probably the only time it happens here. The last thing, the River Keepers is a group of people that want to preserve land, especially along the river, and they're doing a shoreline sweep this Saturday. We do have a piece of property that the town owns over on River Road, just a little bit, I guess it would be west of Lynch Park. And I'll be out there, and hopefully we can get a few good volunteers to pick up a little bit of mess out there and clean up that whole area along the shoreline. We don't want a whole lot of kids because it's not the safest area. It is an area that you want to be a little bit nimble, and I'm not nimble, but I'll do the best I can while I'm there. And that's actually being put on by River Keepers. So maybe we'll see you there on Saturday. And I believe that's all I have. So I'll go back to, let's see, our next meeting is September 28th at 7:30 p.m. I don't believe we have any preliminaries that evening, so it'd be 7:30. We'll go back to public input. This is the, yes.
Additional report,
Sure.
The board, Advisory Board met, we had 2 meetings already this month, the 2nd and 9th, is a special meeting. We did meet with the Paul, an extended meeting on the 2nd to discuss the issues and discuss concerns with that, and working towards a, some solution to that project. And we're wrapping that up and set that back to Paul, for consideration in the planning board. Also on the 9th, we met with, Bridgestone developers on their project, and just preparing comments for planning board on that project also. Reviewed a couple other projects that are in preliminary stages, and our next meeting is on the 5th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. We'll go back to public input. Is there anybody that wishes to speak on any subject? Julie? Good question. I have talked to Jill Kepler about that from the Tribune, because that's where most of the local news comes from. And she says they just don't have anybody available at this point. She's the only one I've talked to. I don't know why Buffalo News has, they missed the last meeting as well, if I remember right. Yeah. Anybody else on any subject? Sharon? That's a planning board question. They can choose to do that if they wish.
Okay, 3400 Niagara Falls Boulevard is the address for Aubrey Way.
It's probably, I can only guess that's because that's where the office is. That's where correspondence would be sent.
It's not an entrance to the development from Niagara Falls Boulevard.
That's correct. At this point, that's correct, yes.
There's already traffic issues, as we are all well aware of. Cougar Road, Eric Road is very narrow. Most of the town streets are narrow, and you're gonna add another street already onto a busy street. You know, just to consider that. And, one other thing I'm confused about is
Tim, you've been at all the meetings.
Bob Weaver's name is on environmental assessment.
Don't we know, doesn't the planning board normally ask who owns the property? Isn't that part of it? Or they get some kind of a document from the developer, the builder?
Yes, the applicant is not the owner, they request a letter, from whoever the owner is, saying the applicant is receiving it, so.
Yeah.
Their understanding of the applicant.
If that comes up at the next time Aubrey shows up, you might want to ask that question. Okay. I don't make all the planning board meetings. Yes, sir.
Can I find that out if I go to like the tax rolls and that, who owns that property now?
Bridget? Yeah, you,
Now, what happens if it ain't Bob Weaver? Is that misleading to the, everyone now?
I don't know.
That's I'm new to all this. I only got like a year into this now.
Well, the planning board, of course, is dealing with the documents that are submitted to the board. Usually one of the things they require is to know that the person who is meeting with them is a representative of the company that owns the property and is going to make the changes. That's part of the process. It's probably already happened, but Sharon's questioning that. Bridget says you can find out. So anybody that wants can ask Bridget, and Bridget can look it up.
Somebody was at the meeting 2 weeks ago, and they showed me the paperwork that shows Bob Weaver paid like $330,000 for the property, and an hour later sold it to Roselle for 1.3 something.
That would be a private issue that we wouldn't be involved in, but.
I know, but I feel like he's hiding behind Weaver.
Okay.
And because Kristen Savard also made a mistake at the planning board meeting, which a few of us overheard her say when a question was asked to her, she said, no, Gary doesn't want that. Oh, I mean Bob. So we knew exactly then that.
Okay, anybody else on any subject? Keith?
I thank the town board for having the sheriffs and the state police, patrolling Evergreen and Knoll. That stop sign on the corner, you might as well not even have it there most of the time because it's like some of the people said, it's just a cut through between Boulevard and Nash. And in the evenings, or in early mornings and evenings, I mean, it's a shortcut there. They need to keep up those patrols.
Yeah, it's certainly not the only place. We have that a lot. This Saturday morning, there was a sheriff's deputy over at Furchin Road at Whitmer. She was actually parked on Furchin Road watching the ones go flying by. And when one would go flying by the stop sign there, she'd go talk to him. It's not only there, it's everywhere. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, there's nothing that stops people from going through. That's a town-owned street. People can go through there. A lot of the ones from Aero Instruments make that cutoff so they can avoid the light. Yeah. The only thing we can do is patrol it and hopefully keep the speed to a reasonable level. Anybody else? Okay, then before we adjourn, I'm going to make a motion to go into executive session for personnel issues. And again, we probably won't be taking any action when we come back out of that session. Do I have a second? Second by Art. Anything on the question? We would want, Kathy there, we would want our town attorney there, and the board members. Anything on the question? Then all in favor of going into executive session, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That is approved.